UFC Fight Night. Number 2 ranked Brian Ortega versus number 4 ranked Chan Sung Jung, or also known as the Korean Zombie. Man, we got a hell of a card on our hands. I say it every week. It feels like it, but it's because there have been bangers every single week. So without any further ado, let me introduce my co-host as always. AJ, how you living, bro?
Man, I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing real well this week. How you doing?
Right on. I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling good because in UFC Fight Island 5, we both hit a 50% clip or more. Or so if we hitting 50%, I'll take it every single time. I mean, with that being said, let's just get straight into it. AJ, man, what are some takeaways that you had from if you aren't familiar with UFC Fight Island 5, it was Corey Sanghagen facing off against the number 1 bantamweight contender Marlon Moraes. What were your takeaways from this last weekend, AJ?
Well, from the entire card, Derick, I guess a couple of my takeaways really is seeing the amount of talent that is coming into the UFC undefeated and literally just pools of people just crowding the UFC talent pool. It's so impressive. It's almost hard to do research on everybody because there's so many killers out there. And I mean, one simple fact to go into why that is both you and I, when we picked our sleepers the last week, they were basically all knockouts or crazy killer fights. So there's so much young talent. I say young talent. Some of these dudes are older than me, right? But there's so much potential out there. It's crazy that how much the sport has grown. What about you, Derick? What's a takeaway for you?
My big takeaway is, first off, the main event, man. There is so much spoken in just those short round and a quarter that took place, man. Corey Sanghagen earned his 3rd second-round knockout in his UFC tenure so far with a wheel kick against Marlon Moraes. Now, that's saying something, dude. You don't just get Moraes out of there like that and make it look that easy. Now, what's really interesting is that Dana White just booked Peter Yan, which is the current 135-pound champion, versus Aljamain Sterling, which is the dude who beat Corey Sanghagen just one fight ago in 88 seconds. So we're going to clear up who is going to be the number 1 contender, and it's looking pretty clear. Corey Sanghagen gets the winner of that title fight. So that is a huge takeaway, because I know just last week we were talking about the uncertainty within the 135-pound division. Now, lastly, man, I told everybody last week to watch for Impa Kasanganay versus Joaquin Buckley, because I was really shocked to see that was a prelim fight and it was left off of the main card. Now, what did we get as a result? I didn't think my boy Impa was going to get slept like that, but we saw basically what could be the greatest MMA knockout of all time, at least UFC, at least this year, but it's got to be up there in contention for all time. It was one of my sleepers, and as you noted, AJ, man, the sleepers that we chose are sleepers for a reason. These are big fights. These are dudes with knockout power and dudes coming in with, like we noted last week, a lot of undefeated records that are ready to scrap. So the card was pretty incredible. Like I said, we both went 50%. I went 3 for 6. You went 3 for 6. Now, I will say the one I hit on that you didn't was Sanghagen over Moraes, and the one that you hit that I didn't was Edson Barbosa versus Amir Khani. So a lot of good stuff out there, man. We both missed on Tybura versus Rothwell and Tupuria versus Zalal. So there's that for you folks, but we're not going to live in the past. We're focused on the future. So let's get into some sleepers. AJ, man, what's your first sleeper this week?
My first sleeper, man, Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Mark Striegel. Now, don't let the name fool you. Maybe Russian, maybe with the same surname as Nurmagomedov, the champ or the single champ, but he fights at a very different style. You know what I'm saying? Very fast, very flashy striker. Likes to stay outside and throw a lot of spinning, very flashy, unconventional strikes, and really entertain the people of the show. Now, Mark Striegel, he's coming in on a 4-fight win streak, all right? Likes to control the octagon, lulls his opponent to sleep and like a false sense of security. Kind of reminds me of Anthony Lionheart, really. Solid base, hands low, but very, very, very strong. Now, his last fight was a no contest because he kicked a dude, low kicked a guy, right? And the crazy thing, his opponent Shimizu was wearing a steel tie cup. Now, if you know anything about the steel tie cup, that's like the one bonus is it hurts them more than it hurts you. Well, he kicked him so hard that he couldn't feel his legs, and they had to call the fight, no contest. So dude's got power. It's coming in. And, so I'm really excited to see a flashy guy versus somebody who's just coming in throwing heat. What do you got, Derick?
Man, so for my first sleeper this week, I think these are going to be people nobody knows about. These are two big Russians, man. So I'm gonna butcher the name, but work with me here. So this is a light heavyweight bout, 205 pounds. Gazmarad Antogulov. I can say the last name. Antogulov is facing off against Maxim Grisham, and both of these dudes don't have the most UFC experience. Antogulov has 5 fights in the UFC. Grisham has 1. So, 6 fights combined. There's a lot to be proved here. What you need to know about Antogulov is this dude is all about the wrestling, man. All about it. He's an aggressive striker who punches and kicks to set up a single or a double leg. So it's one of those cases like a Brian Ortega that we'll get to a little bit later where they could throw whatever they want. There is absolutely no fear when they strike because they know that they can handle themselves on the ground and they know they have great pressure against the cage. So I did want to point out that he does this one thing where basically he'll throw a big overhand right and shoot for a single leg at the same exact time. So it's like a weird double punch, but it's really effective, man, and it works and it ties up his opponent. So he's always moving forward, and he's moving forward against a dude who reminds me a lot of a Vladimir Klitschko. Now, I don't want to play off of the Russian comparison, but he stands up really tall and he sets up his offense behind that 1-2. So, he mixes it up very solid, throws in some front kicks, throws in some side kicks, and generates his offense by countering. But you're most likely going to see him moving backwards or circling out. He is not a pressure fighter, but he does have real KO power in that right hand, just like a Klitschko. So watch out for the right hand, baby. This is going to be interesting. A dude who moves forward versus a dude who's looking to counter. What you got next, AJ?
Next up, I got Mutez Gamro versus Grisham Kutiladze. Now, what you need to know about these guys, Derick, Gamro, he's very calm in the pocket, yet very, very active. Very smooth kind of style to him. Able to switch stances, and he carries like an old Vanderlei Silva, he carries weight in both hands, So it's his UFC debut, another undefeated fighter. He's coming to show that Poland is real. Next up, we got Grisham Kutiladze. Now, showed absolute heart in his last fight by getting rocked in the first 30 seconds by Felipe Silva, composed himself, and when in the pocket against the fence, he throws this crazy head kick, and it's able to distract his opponent enough and lands a serious check hook left bomb that put him out, put Felipe Silva out in 44 seconds. Absolutely beautiful knockout. You got to check it out. Kutiladze, he has 7 KOs, but still very talented all around. All around his ground game, his stand game, it's amazing. Trains out of Sweden with the newest rising star, Chimaev. So I'm really excited to see what this guy has to bring to the table because we know Chimaev already made a big splash. So I've heard the name Kutiladze once or twice before, so I'm really excited to see this guy come up. What do you got, Derick?
Right on, man. So the next sleeper that I have is going to be a middleweight bout. And what's really interesting about this is one of the fighters, man. So it's Jun Young Park versus John Phillips. I'm going to talk about John Phillips first because just like you mentioned, he was also read the Hazma Chimaev train and got absolutely dismantled in that fight. That was really like that start of the Chimaev train, the hype train, right? So his last fight was against Hazma, where he was outstruck 45-1, and he got tapped out in the second round with a Darce choke. It was ugly. It was the complete opposite of what John Phillips' game is, which is to walk forward and smash you. He is a brawler, not a boxer, not a really an MMA fighter. Dude is a brawler. He's looking to throw those hands on you, and he can knock you out with any given punch. He has 17 first-round finishes, and 9 of those were in under 1 minute. And like I said, he's not interested in the ground game, man. He just wants to walk forward and smash you. Now, his opponent is out of South Korea, Jun Young Park. He's 4-1 in his last 5, and he's 1-1 in the UFC. But what's really interesting is, so he fights at Korean Top Team, and it has no affiliation to American Top Team, but it is one of the global regions where they, just kind of emulated that Top Team style. So this dude is legit. That gym is legit. And dude likes to kickbox, man. He likes to kickbox and get that rear leg up real quick to attack the calves, attack the body. He doesn't use the kick enough, but if he turns it up, man, it's going to hurt you. Punches and bunches, baby. We throwing combos all day long. And he has really, really solid wrestling and control against the cage with a very solid jab. But the one thing that makes this a sleeper, what makes this exciting is, like I said, John Phillips walking forward wants to smash a hole in your face. Well, Jun Young Park, his striking, the effectiveness or the efficiency decreases substantially when he's put on the back foot, and that's exactly where John Phillips is going to put him. So I don't know if he'll be able to use that wrestling. I think it's going to be center of the cage, or Jung Young Park might be running for his life, but it's going to be a scrap. What you got next, AJ?
Man, next up for my third sleeper, Derick. We talked about him last week. I'm bringing him up again. Thomas Almeida. This time he's against Jonathan Martinez. Now, Thomas Almeida, he's a finisher. 17 KOs, 4 submissions, 7 first-round finishes. He knows how to finish a fight. He was on a hot streak till he hit Garbrandt, and Cody Garbrandt's no slump, so we can kind of forgive him for a little bit of that. Very flashy, very fast Muay Thai Brazilian fighter, and he's looking to come back and get on the dub side of things. So I would just, for him, watch those kicks, and everyone's favorite combo, you already know it, Derick, that solid 2-3. Next up, Jonathan Martinez. Dude, this dude, he is trouble, all right. Now, he ran into a little bit of guff with making weight for his last fight, so he was real big. We're going to see how he looks this fight. It's a little bit of an issue, but very smart southpaw striker with a very dangerous left leg, all right? Whether it's kicks or it's knees, this dude throws heat with that left leg. Very relaxed, very powerful, and like I said, he shows up big. He's 5'8", so he's a little tall for the weight class. I'll get into the picks a little bit later, but right now, that's my sleeper. It's a big, flashy fighter, a big, flashy striker, Brazilian Muay Thai striker versus Jonathan Martinez, who's coming in very relaxed but powerful as well and looking to put a hole in your face, like you said on the last one. It's going to be exciting, Derick. What you got for you?
All right, so next up is a main card match, which, like you said, we're going to really break it down in just a moment. But this one actually got moved from the prelim to the main card due to the co-main, which I apologize. I forget the two fighters' names, but they dropped out because one of them was still signed to PFL. It was contract negotiations. So this one gets bumped up, and I'm glad to see it because we have a Brazilian versus an American. Claudio Silva is fighting James Krause, man, a UFC favorite. Now, James Krause is taking this fight on short notice, just like he took his last fight on short notice, so we definitely need to point that out. But Claudio Silva, man, dude is an absolute beast. He is undefeated in the UFC, 5-0. He has a 71-inch reach, and he uses that thing, man. He uses his striking. So what's interesting about him? We have a BJJ black belt who is intent on closing distance. Like, that is really just what he wants to do. He throws everything but the kitchen sink once again because he does not care. Take him to the ground. That's fine. He's one of those dudes where he gets knocked over, knocked down, or whatever. He'll just lay there. What's up? Come enter the guard. It's all good. But here's what's interesting. Dude gets really lazy, man. Like, he gets cracked in every single fight I've watched of him. He gets cracked ridiculously at least once in the fight. So this dude is walking forward, hands down, just sprinting at you, trying to throw crazy kicks and punches at you. And he has a chin. He's eating punches, but one of these days, man, that chin ain't gonna hold. So something we need to look out for. And lastly, man, once he gets you on the ground, you're not getting up. He smothers you. He is very much like a Khabib or very much like a Brian Ortega. I hate to keep making the comparison. Now, James Krause, tried and true. People already know what it is about this dude. Dude is tall, he's long, and he fights tall and long. He spent the majority of his career bouncing around between 155 and 170, but his last fight he took on short notice against Trevin Giles at 185. So he's a dude who he doesn't care. He'll fight anybody. It is what it is. Now, he pops his jab really effectively, but you could tell it's more of a rangefinder than it is a piston. So he's kind of like a Cowboy Cerrone who is really a volume striker. He's just going to put it on you, punches and bunches, the whole entire fight. Mixes up his strikes pretty well, man. And he has a very effective rear leg calf kick. And, lastly, man, dude has 15 submission wins. So I think that this is what's going to happen. I think that Claudio Silva is going to try to smother him like he always does. Dude's going to be able to hold his own in terms of submission defense and all of that stuff. But what's going to be interesting is in that transition, what's going to happen in the stand-up? James Krause, if he doesn't have to go to the ground, he will not go to the ground. So this is going to be a banger of a banger. And if James Krause wins, man, he got a split decision loss versus Trevin Giles on like a week's notice, 185 pounds, man. Dude's stock keeps going up. Very experienced. That's what I got on this one, but we'll talk about it a little bit more a little bit here in the future. Now, AJ, I'm gonna get it right this time. You started off, so that's it with your sleepers, right?
That's it with my sleepers, brother.
All right on, man. Well, hey, let's just jump straight into it. And one of your sleepers, so I'll let you give me the pick first. But we have Thomas Almeida versus Jonathan Martinez facing off at 135 pounds, bantamweight matchup, man. What you got here? Who you thinking?
Man, like I said before, I'm really excited for this fight. Thomas Almeida, a little bit desperate. He's lost 3 of his last 5, and he lost his last one by head kick and punches. So he's trying to get back on that dub skis. Now, personally, I believe Martinez is just going to be too big for Almeida. He's going to push him around, control the fight. I'm going Martinez, KO, round 2. What you got?
Right on. So, you got a similar pick there, my friend. So, Almeida, man, his last fight was in 2018. One of the things I really like about him is, dude, rolls. He rolls with punches very, very well. I think that's a very commendable trait right there. And he cracks his opponents with counter strikes, but I still don't think it's going to be enough because my favorite thing about Jonathan Martinez is his kicks, man. His kicks are you can't call them underrated because if you're anywhere in the vicinity watching it, you're going to hear that thing, man. And I think the kicks are going to overwhelm him. KO, round 2. You want to announce the next one, dog?
Yeah, I got it, brother. This is actually one of your sleepers, Claudio Silva versus James Krause. Like you said before, Claudio Silva training out of ATT. He's Brazilian. My most notable win for him was against Leon Edwards in 2014. Leon Edwards, no slump. It was a little bit ago, but not that long. Leon went on a killing spree after that. Anyway, back to Claudio Silva, 10 submission wins and hasn't lost a fight since his pro debut. He's a savage, if you know him. James Krause, I think it's going to be interesting seeing how these two guys actually, like you said, in the transition. Because they're both good on the ground, both good on their feet. So who's going to be able to actually control the tension in the octagon and who has the supremacy in the entire up and down rounds is really going to be the control of this fight, Personally, I'm going James Krause, KO, round 3.
Okay, right on, man. So this matchup, man, the popular pick is going to be James Krause because the people love him. Now, I'm not saying that influenced your decision at all, but when I had to watch the tape on James Krause, man, of course, he's a fan favorite, but I didn't really like what I saw. He doesn't really fight with much urgency. Like, he gets down on the cards and has to do something miraculous to come back and win the fight. And in his fight versus Bobby Green, which granted, this was some years back, he just was complacent in the striking, which is where you're going to see Claudio Silva. You're going to see some striking here. So he was very complacent in that striking, and dude got kicked in the groin, or it was like kind of lower stomach area, fell down, and Big John McCarthy called the fight because he said he was basically faking a nut shot. So James Krause, man, I don't know. I'm not going for him. I'm going Claudio Silva, and I think that the stranglehold on getting him on the ground and just keeping him there is gonna be what wins the fight. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. It's not even about if you're doing much when you're on the ground. As long as you can keep your opponent on his back and not throwing offensive subs off his back, you're probably going to win the round. I'm going Claudio Silva, decision win on this one. But the last thing that I do want to note on Claudio Silva, just as a little fun fact, he's on a 3-win submission streak, but he fought Danny Roberts. This was 2 fights ago. And in that fight, Danny Roberts didn't tap. The referee did an early just pulled him off and said that he tapped, but he didn't. He said it was a verbal tap. But those are the little things that we don't really think about. We're just seeing this dude's tearing people up. But that fight could have gone much differently if he did not get the ref to pull him off. So just wanted to point that out. But let's get into the next fight, man, which is we got Jimmy Crute versus Modestas Bukakus at what are we at? We're at 205 pounds, light heavyweight, man. This is a scrap. This is totally a scrap, man. And I want to let you go first, but I do want to point out 2 big intangibles about these fighters. Jimmy Crute is a BJJ brown belt. Just keep that in note. Modestas Bukakus, his dad is his coach, so he is on that ass. He is a disciplined fighter, man. Who you think is taking this fight, man?
Man, so me personally, Jimmy, you're right about that. I'll start off with Modestas in that case because you were very correct about that. His dad is on his ass, and this dude is a freak. 7-fight win streak. His last opponent, Kutiladze, he literally retired on the stool. Mm-hmm. Homeboy just didn't want it anymore. He said, "I'm good." Anyway, Bukakus, he's very light on his feet, but very, very strong strikes. Big right hand and a strong lead left leg. I always like that lead left, that karate point kick fast. It hurts, man. It hurts when you get kicked. The good thing about Bukakus, he's got a hell of a chin. He's got one strong chin, and Derek, a special bonus out there. He used to train out of Jackson Wink, so he's a savage.
New Mexico represent.
Next up, Jimmy Crute. He's very strong, very well balanced, and if need be, he will take the fight to the ground, kind of like a little bit later, Brian Ortega. He's anywhere he wants to be. He'll go ahead and do it. But what impressed me with this cat, his last 4 finishes, punches round 1, Kimura round 3, punches round 1, Kimura round 1. This dude, so he can mix it up however it needs to go and either rip your arm off or knock you right to sleep. So basically what I'm saying is, like I said, he can finish the fight. So personally, I see this fight really going one of two ways. Crute instantly shoots, takes to the ground, it's a submission match. Bukakus stops the shoot and is able to put on a striking show, and it's KO City. I'm going Bukakus, KO, round 1.
Okay, interesting. So let me talk about Jimmy Crute real fast, dog. Because Bukakus is an absolute monster. Dude's a beast. He's knocking out everyone. His last 5 fights have been, his last 5 victories have all been by knockout. But Jimmy Crute, man, one thing he does to mitigate anybody striking is he puts the backpack on you, and we've seen it time and time again, man. What happens if I'm smothering you? You're not gonna punch me. You know what I mean? The only thing you can do is slam me, pull a Jéssica Andrade, which we'll talk about in a second. But he puts the backpack on his opponents. He tires them out. He has an 81% takedown accuracy, so if anyone does try to take him down, it's probably not going to happen. And like you said, he mixes it up well. 4 knockouts, 4 submissions. He can really do it anywhere that he wants, and because of that skill set, that well-roundedness, I'm picking Jimmy Crute to win by decision win. I don't think that this is going to be the funnest of fights. I think he's going to mitigate Bukakus' striking by putting the backpack on him. So let's get into the next one, man. AJ, you throw this one out there.
Oh, yeah. Katlyn Chookagian versus Jéssica Andrade. Now, 2 women who have been fighting for a long time in the UFC. I'm really excited for this one. Chookagian, she has great movement. Very tactical striker with a fantastic ground game. A real veteran of the game. Facing another tricky fighter. It's going to be interesting. Chookagian's going to it's going to be interesting to see if she chooses whether to take this fight to the ground like she did against Antonia Shevchenko, or if she will utilize her height and reach advantage, keeping the fight on her feet and striking from the outside. Now, like I said, she's 5'9". So against, a 5'1" fighter, we'll see if she's able to pick her apart from the outside. Now, Jéssica Andrade, I think no one has ever said it best, or better, than Joe Rogan. She reminds him of a young Vanderlei Silva. And it's true. She is a beast. Oh, man. Her last win against Rose Namajunas, Thug Rose, my girl, she got slammed on her head, just picked up straight. It was, if you're an Andrade fan, it was very impressive. If you're a Rose fan, it was heartbreaking. But she has fantastic head movement, very strong in a very little package, which is very hard to hit because she's so fast. So it adds a little bit of yin and yang, a good and a bad for her. I think she could utilize that kind of Tyson style approach we've seen, duck and under that peekaboo, get on the inside and slug it out like she likes to. Will result in being a legit killer every single fight. I'm predicting Andrade to defend the takedown of Chookagian, get inside, make it a dog fight, and just Chookagian not being able to handle the heat. Andrade KO round 3. What you got?
Interesting, man. So I looked at this fight a little bit differently, man. So let's break it down. Katlyn Chookagian, she is a Gracie BJJ brown belt. And she's a decision fighter. It's clear what it is. Like you said, she's super tall, right? She is, she's 5'9" and has a 68-inch reach versus Jéssica Andrade, which we do need to mention. She's making her UFC flyweight debut. She's never fought at 125 pounds. She is a strawweight. So she's moving up a weight class to take this fight. And Andrade, 5'1" with a 62-inch reach. So that is a huge differential. Like, I highlighted that one completely and was like, hold on, this is going to be interesting, right? So Jéssica Andrade, yes, young Vanderlei type, spirit, I guess you can say. Obviously she's a completely different fighter, but she gives that spirit. She has that Tyson intensity. But I think a lot of that is narrative as well, because if you look at it, like what her record is, she's a very well-balanced fighter. 7 knockout wins, 7 submission wins, and 6 decision wins, So she'll get it done in a plethora of ways. Now, this is how I see this fight playing out, man. Katlyn Chookagian versus, forgive me, is it tell me what the name is, Shevchenko's sister?
Jéssica Andrade.
No,
Sorry, go again.
Shevchenko's Valentina Shevchenko. Antonia, there we go. Antonia Shevchenko, right? In that fight, we need to give a little context, right? So Chookagian fought for the title against Valentina Shevchenko. Now, it was not a ass whooping at all. It was a very tactical fight, but she was outclassed because Valentina Shevchenko would just make any great fighter look like a not great fighter, right? Now, what ended up happening is Shevchenko was able to take Chookagian to the ground, take her to her strong suit, put her in a crucifix, got her out of there, right? So what did Chookagian do next? She fought little sister, right? When you can't beat up the big sister, you go fight the little sister. Put it on the little sister, had her on the ground, tried to choke her out a million times, just ground and pound all day. It was the final score was unanimous 30-25. So she had something to prove in that fight. Now what we're going to see in this next one, I think this is going to be a continuation. So I'm going Chookagian. I'm going with a decision win because last time I checked, you have to be able to hit somebody to be able to knock them out. She's not going to pick up and slam Chookagian. You're literally going up weight. You're not fighting a Rose Namajunas no more. And we do need to point out that when Rose Namajunas got the rematch against Andrade, she just outpointed her. That's the name of the game against Andrade. You're going to outbox her because she knows one style, and that style is to come forward. And just like John Phillips, when you got people who aren't willing to play that game with you, you're not always going to see success in the UFC. So I'm going Chookagian. I am going with the decision win, and I think this is going to set her up for another shot at the belt because Chookagian is the #1 contender in the 125-pound weight division for females, of course. Now, what do we have next? We have the main event, man. First off, we've been waiting for this fight for a long time. Lot of bad blood here. This is a matchup that I want people to savor, and I want people to really not take this for granted. Don't take this for granted because this is one of those rare fights where you're getting these two dudes pretty much in their prime, duking it out. Bad blood on the line. AJ, we got #2 ranked Brian Ortega, T-City Ortega versus Chan Sung Jung or Jung, my guy, the Korean zombie. Let's talk about this, man. We got a lot to talk about. So I'll let you start off. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Man, this fight, I'm so excited. Well, this is one of those fight night fights that kind of seems like it's getting swept under the rug. But, man, these dudes get some clout in my book, all right? You don't get a name T-City without tapping out some serious killers. Just strictly for instance, just on 2 fights, his 2 guillotine chokes against Renato Moicano and Cub Swanson. Like 2 legends, bro. Brian Ortega is for real. He did have a pretty significant loss against Max Holloway, but I just showed the greatness of the blessed out there, okay? Brian Ortega, very fast jab, and like we saw against Frankie Edgar, homeboy likes to drop bombs, okay? I'm very excited to see the growth that Ortega has taken on since his run-in with Max Holloway 2 years ago. I'm really excited to see how much this 29-year-old kid has grown up. Now, we know Ortega, he likes to shoot when the opportunity presents itself, but he also looks to counterpunch, and I think with the Korean Zombie, it's going to be on the feet all day. Now, Chan Sung Jung, I saw an incredible post earlier today. He hasn't lost, or his fights haven't gone to a decision in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. That's a stat that if you're a fan of fighting, you're like, all right, this dude's coming in for the kill. That's awesome. He's on a 2-fight win streak. Also beat Frankie Edgar. Also beat Renato Moicano. He was winning the fight against Yair Rodriguez and had a spectacular KO because he likes to leave his heart on the mat. And homeboy left his chin on the mat that night. So the Zombie is such an interesting fighter to me, man, strictly because I would never advise anybody ever to fight his style. Hands down, feet planted, saying, come on. Mm-hmm. It's impressive and it's crazy, man. It reminds me of a Yoel Romero, how he likes to keep his feet planted, dude, and just throw heat. As a fan, you love to see it. Now, I believe this fight really is going to be a big battle of attrition, a big battle of heart. I'm expecting big shots, tons of action. Both fighters have absolutely zero quit in them. And they need to either be put to sleep or have a doctor step in, tap out to end the fight. I genuinely believe this fight's actually a toss-up. It can go in either direction. But personally, I think T-City's going to get it done. Submission round 3. What you got?
All right, man. Well, here, I got a lot to say here. So let's break it down, right? So This is a fight where I'm torn because I'm biased, man. Brian Ortega is my guy. I love watching this dude fight. And I, to be honest with you, I'm not the most well versed on the Korean Zombie in terms of I haven't been following his career from the jump like a lot of people have. Like, this was more or less one of those dudes who I knew was a killer, but I never bothered to watch the fights unless it was showing on, a highlight or whatever the case may be. Now, I watched an extensive amount of film study on both of these fighters, and the film study, what pops out on there is that Korean Zombie, I dare say it, he's a better fighter than Brian Ortega. And what I mean by that is that he's more well-rounded. Now, Brian Ortega, you're not messing with him on the ground. We know that. But because of the way that he has been training, and it's been very much like a mom and pop training type style in his garage and stuff, he just changed his camp. He's just finished taking 300 significant strikes to the face from Max Holloway, right? And just a little nugget on there. Did you know Brian Ortega, he said that so there's that clip of Holloway putting his hand up being like, hey, bro, block, yada, yada, yada. He said that the reason why he stopped blocking is because his hands hurt more than his face hurt from taking punches. So his hands hurt from punching this dude so hard. He was like, bro, I'm just going to eat these shots. Like, it's all good. Don't even trip. So that goes to tell you, you're not going to knock out Ortega. You know what I mean? Unless you really come in with some heat, which Korean Zombie is, you're not going to knock out Ortega. But this is the one place you can get Ortega if you're the Korean Zombie. Let's go back to the Yair Rodriguez fight. So, yeah, Ortega, the similar opponents too. Ortega, he got the guillotine finish. Congrats. He wasn't going to win that fight, man. He was starting Yair Rodriguez was starting to put it on him, and Ortega just happened to get that transition to the ground, squeezing that guillotine when he was out of breath, and then get him out of there. What did Korean Zombie do? He knocked not Yair Rodriguez. Who am I talking about?
Frankie Edgar.
No, Renato Moicano. Apologies, because Yair Rodriguez gave Korean Zombie the elbow, right? But Renato Moicano. So those are the two similar opponents that these two dudes fought. But Korean Zombie got him out of there in spectacular fashion. Knocked out Frankie Edgar in his last fight, spectacular fashion. Dude's last 9 wins have come by a knockout or a submission. 6 knockout wins, 8 submission wins, 2 decision wins for the Korean Zombie versus Brian Ortega, who's at 3 knockouts, 7 submissions, 4 decisions. This is how I see the fight playing out. Brian Ortega is going to fall into the Korean Zombie's trap. And what that trap is to challenge him on the ground. Just like you said, this is going to be a ground affair because he's going to challenge him. He's going to get Brian Ortega to be a little too prideful, especially with his bad blood here. They're going to strike it out, duke it out. And I see more or less a Yair Rodriguez versus Korean Zombie too. I mean, do you agree? It's just going to be a war, a 5-round war. And I really, truly do not think anyone will get knocked out in this fight. I think we're going to see blood-coated faces on both of these fighters' faces at the end of the 5 rounds. And I think the beef will be resolved at the end of this fight, man, because when you get punched in your face, a couple hundred times between the both of you, man, you know what I'm saying? It's going to take a little steam off you. So ultimately, I'm going Korean Zombie. I'm going with a decision win. It's hard to choose against my guy, Brian Ortega. But the problem with him is that he doesn't use his jiu-jitsu enough. He gets a little too prideful and likes to stand and trade a little bit too much. So that's what I got for the main card. AJ, man, we gave him the sleepers like we always do. We gave him the main card picks. At this point, man, just in terms of a narrative for the card, do you have anything else to talk about for this one?
Man, in terms of this card, I guess in terms of everything, really, I'm excited to see how much the sport has grown just based on having the KO of the year from last year, because these boys are going to want to get paid even more. So they know the bar has been set, and especially with the bad blood, like you said, for Ortega and Zombie, I think it's going to be fireworks, man. What you got?
I have to agree with that sentiment, man. I really do. There has been a lot of growth in this sport, and I think at this point now, the UFC is truly, it kind of always has been, but this is truly the pinnacle of mixed martial arts right now. This is where I want to just commend Dana White and the people at the UFC for a moment, because the reason why I had to tune out of boxing more than I do from MMA is because we have dudes who are putting their O on the line every weekend. Every single weekend, where they're not afraid to lose their undefeated streak, and they're putting dudes together that are like fantasy matchups in boxing. So the fantasy is real life in the UFC. So let's keep it up, man. I know we're coming to a close for the busy season for the UFC cards every single week. They're going to start stretching them back out to like 2 weeks or whatnot. So while we got it, let's enjoy it. Let us know who you got in the comments below. Go put in your picks onto Verdict, and may the best man or person win, man. Go get your picks and let's see if you can do better than me. You know, I gave you the sleepers. I gave you the picks. Let's see if you could do better than me. AJ, man, that wasn't referred to you. You be doing better than me kind of all the time, AJ. But, you know, listen, may the best man win. Until next time, folks. Peace.